What you are about to hear is the story of a man his own government buried twice, once in secret and once to erase him from history entirely. A body in the ground means nothing if the wrong people put it there. Today we are going to be exploring the story of Laszlo Rajk, a Hungarian revolutionary, a war hero, a true believer who was executed by the very party he gave his life to build, and then, years later, dug up, reburied with full honours, and turned into the symbol that helped crack a communist empire apart. And trust me, by the time you hear what happened between those two funerals, you will not believe this was real. Most people who know this story start in the wrong place. The real beginning is not the execution. It is the confession. Laszlo Rajk was born on March 8, 1909, in Székely Udvarhely, in what is now Romania. He was the kind of man who believed in things completely. As a young student in Budapest in the 1930s, he joined the illegal Hungarian Communist Party, at a time when doing so could land you in prison. And it did, multiple times. He did not care.
When the Spanish Civil War broke out in 1936, Rajk travelled to Spain and fought with the international brigades against Francisco Franco's nationalist forces, alongside thousands of other idealists from across Europe who believed fascism had to be stopped wherever it appeared. He was captured. He escaped. He came back. During World War II, he organised communist resistance inside Hungary itself, under Nazi occupation, under constant surveillance, under threat of death. By the time the war ended and the Hungarian communists took power in 1945, Laszlo Rajk was not just a party member, he was a legend. They made him Minister of the Interior, then Foreign Minister. He was 39 years old. He had a wife, Julia Rajk, and a newborn son. He had survived fascism, war, prison, and occupation. He had no idea what was coming. In the
spring of 1949, Laszlo Rajk was arrested by the AVH, the Hungarian State Protection Authority, the secret police of the very government he had helped create. The charges were breathtaking. He was accused of being a Titoist spy, a secret agent working for Yugoslavia's Josip Broz Tito, who had broken with Stalin in 1948. He was accused of being a Western imperialist agent, a fascist collaborator, a traitor to everything he had spent his entire adult life fighting for. None of it was true. None of it. What followed was one of the most grotesque performances of the Stalinist show trial system. Rajk was subjected to weeks of psychological torture at the AVH's headquarters on Andrassy Út 60 in Budapest, a building so feared it was simply called the House of Terror by ordinary Hungarians. Sleep deprivation, endless interrogation, threats against his wife and infant son. And then he confessed. Not because he was guilty, but because his former comrade and fellow communist Erno Gero, acting under orders from Moscow, made him a promise. Confess publicly, perform the trial, and your family will be spared. Hungary needs this spectacle. He will not
actually be executed. Laszlo Rajk stood in the courtroom of the Budapest Municipal Court on September 16, 1949, and delivered a confession so thorough, so detailed, so damning of himself, that even some of his accusers were unsettled by it.
I am guilty. I became an enemy of the Hungarian people and of the working class. I placed myself in the service of imperialist warmongers and of the Tito clique.
He had been promised his life. On October 15, 1949, less than a month after that confession, Laszlo Rajk was hanged at Conti Street Prison in Budapest. He was 40 years old. His wife Julia was arrested the same day and sent to a labor camp. Their infant son, also named Laszlo, was placed in an orphanage under a false name, separated from his mother for years. The promise had been a lie, every word of it. They buried him in an unmarked grave, because even in death, they were afraid of him. And that is where the story should have ended.
But here is the thing about burying a man unjustly. 7 years later, in 1956, the Soviet Union itself began to crack. Nikita Khrushchev's secret speech in February of that year denounced Stalin's crimes, the show trials, the executions, the torture. Across Eastern Europe, the ground shifted. In Hungary, the reformist communist Imre Nagy began pushing for change, and ordinary Hungarians who had watched Laszlo Rajk confess to lies and die for them had not forgotten. On October 6, 1956, exactly 7 years after his execution, Laszlo Rajk was exhumed from his unmarked grave and reburied in a full state funeral at Kerepesi Cemetery in Budapest. 200,000 people came. Think about that number. 200,000 Hungarians standing in silence around the coffin of a man their own government had murdered, in a country where public dissent could still get you arrested. It was not just a funeral, it was a declaration. 16 days later, on October 23, 1956, the Hungarian Revolution began. Students and workers poured into the streets of Budapest. The statue of Stalin in Budapest City Park was torn down and dragged through the streets.
The building at Andrassy Út 60, where Laszlo Rajk was broken and where so many others were tortured and killed, stands in Budapest today as the House of Terror Museum. The names of the victims are on the walls. His name is among them. Here is what stays with me about this story. Laszlo Rajk did not die because he was an enemy of communism. He died because he was too good a communist, too popular, too independent, too dangerous to the men above him who needed a villain. Power does not only destroy its enemies, it destroys the people who believe in it most completely, when believing in it stops being useful. Every generation produces men like Laszlo Rajk, men who give everything to a cause, who survive every external enemy, and who are then consumed by the very system they built.
The first burial was meant to erase him. The second one made him permanent. If this story hit you the way it hit me, drop Laszlo Rajk's name in the comments. I want to know if you had heard of him before today, because most people haven't. And that, more than anything, is why this channel exists. And if you want to go deeper into the stories that Eastern European history tried to bury, there is a video waiting for you right now that covers the stories they still don't teach in schools. Click it. I will see you there.